Speaker, who is Barb. I'll give you 2 minutes.
2 minutes ahead? Awesome.
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Perfect. Hi, I'm Barb. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you, guys. It's really cool to be here on a Friday night. I'm like, ooh, I felt like we had an outing. I'm like, we're going to Newport Richie for a meeting, you know? So it was really cool. And I'm sorry I missed the speakers last night. I had to speak somewhere else. So sorry. I appreciate the people that came to see me last night and tonight. And they hear all my drama every day, you know, every day anyway. So like extra thanks. But I don't know, it's good to be in a meeting tonight. I'm definitely an alcoholic. My sobriety date is June 19th of 2011. I've been coming to AA for a long time, and I have 1 year. And you'll hear more of that story. I moved to Tampa a little over a year ago. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm the second youngest of 8 kids, and I'm the baby girl, and I'm like definitely the baby girl. Even at 35, I'm just like temper tantrum. You know, I don't know if that's alcoholism, my upbringing, or a little bit of both, but that's just my deal. Second youngest, big family. It was cool. My parents were married up until my dad died. Are you still married after someone dies? I don't know. But, they were together. I was raised in a good home. I never thought I'd be an alcoholic. I'm sure like a lot of us. And for a long time, I thought you had, in order to be an alcoholic, you had to have something really bad happen to you. Because, I would go into treatment centers and people would be like victims of like domestic abuse or just like have like horrendous like childhood upbringings, and I'm like, I was really good, mine was great. My parents gave me anything I could ever want, and it just like fueled more guilt and shame that I couldn't handle, and that kind of stuff isn't enough to keep me sober. And coincidentally, what I found out later was that like it doesn't matter, what happens, just the fact is I'm an alcoholic, and that's just, it's the way that it affects me. Doesn't matter like who I am, what race I am, what color I am. Those are the same things. What age I am. It didn't matter. It just didn't matter, and that was, it took me a long time to get through this like thick skull, like what it means to be an alcoholic, and I only find it out when I come to AA. It's like the more I come here, the more I realize how much of an alcoholic I really am. And this is the only thing that's ever given me any relief. Although unfortunately I haven't been, I wasn't able to stay continuously sober. This is the only thing that's ever worked. And it's the only thing that's ever worked for other alcoholics in my family. I had my first drink at 13. It's funny. It was like I hated drugs and alcohol up until the point where suddenly I just wanted to do them, I would see my sisters and my brothers come home like wasted. I'd be embarrassed because I'd have like a sleepover and they'd be just like, housed. And I was embarrassed by them. And then one day I just saw my sister and I'm like, now I just want to do it. It was just like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was puberty. I don't, whatever. But like suddenly it was just like a light was switched. The light was switched. I woke up at 4. You guys bear with me. It was just like something got like turned on inside me, and it went from like caring about everything to just wanting to party, just wanting to like go to keggers, date older boys, and like be cool, whatever I thought my idea of cool was. And I had my first drink at 13. I drank a bunch of scotch that I stole from my dad, like good, expensive scotch. And just like puked it all up and just like loved it, I was just like, it's on, and my dad picked me up because it was like 8 p.m. and I was on the front lawn of this little mile by mile suburb that I lived in of like all white people, it's just like, do, and and I'm just like totally just wasted. My dad's like, you been drinking, and I'm like, no, and he's like, right. And they kicked me into bed, and the next morning he's like, do you need to, go to rehab? And I'm like, no, I'm 13. Obviously not. I just puked once at 13, like, come on. And I was totally just like self-righteous and just like a brat from the get-go. And that was it. It was on, and I loved it. And that's what I look forward to. And You know, and I always thought, like, that's how my drinking began. You know, I blacked out that night, I passed out, and I puked. And that was kind of just, like, that's pretty much the way it was, you know? And I always thought I'd grow out of it, and I always thought I'd get, like, a little more graceful. And all I did was just get sloppier, you know? God, you know, but in my head, I was, like, totally just cool. You know, I was unaffected, and I didn't care, and I drink all you guys underneath the table, and whatever, and I do more drugs than you would, and I just prided myself in it. I just prided myself in it. It was, like, the one thing that I do with gusto, and I always followed through on my drinking. You laugh. It was... you know, and I've said this before, but it was just like that typical, like, you know, is your child on drugs? Like the commercials. I'd be sitting with my parents and, you know, like, had they changed friends, dropped their grades, like, you know, dropped out of sports, like, you know, and it was just like, I was just that checklist. Like, I immediately went from, like, having a bunch of girls that were, like, runners and on the soccer team, and, like, we wrote English papers to, like, hanging out with these, to wearing, like, 3 flannels at one point, like a hippie skirt, and drinking, like, whatever. Drinking a lot of rum and, like, taking acid and going to school, and I was referred to as a burnout, because they said, like, Barb, you're a burnout. You know, like, people called me that, you know, like, the popular girls were like, you're a burnout, you know, and I had this big afro, and it was just like, you know... And whatever, I was just like a dirty hippie, and I just thought, like, I don't care, you know, and the more I drank, the worse things I did. As I said, I was sloppy from the beginning, and that just carried over really quickly, you know, with my friendships, with boys, you know, the 16-year-old men, you know, I'm like, he's 16, he totally knows, and, you know, wow, you know, the idiots I dated back then, woo, you know, and, of course, I wasn't a prize either. I later became, like, the person that, like, I, you know, like, I was the, like, I was a girlfriend that, like, no one talked about, you know, I was the late-night girlfriend. It was, like, you know, like, no one... I don't know, and I'll just leave that at that. You guys know too well, so you're all laughing too much at that one. So, you know, I just didn't mean to be this way, you know, and my mom would just look at me, and she was just so disappointed, you know, she was just so disappointed, and then she got disgusted, and my dad would just be like, Barb, you know, like, you just need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps, and you're beautiful, and you're smart, and you can do whatever you want, and, like, we'll give you money for college, we'll give you money, you know, like, whatever you need to do. Education's important. Like, we will give you all the tools you need to, like, go forth in life. And I just couldn't do it, you know. I didn't, like, lose any big material things in my alcoholism because I never got any, you know? I mean, I never gained anything. I was, like, just from, like, zero, you know, like, I started up high and just went down low in the matter of, like, you know, the first year of my drinking, you know, and that was my deal. And it just continued on. I went to my first rehab. You know, I ended up going back to, you know, going to college in another state because I thought it was, you know, Shorewood, Wisconsin that was doing this to me, and, you know, good old Shorewood, and whatever. And when I went to college, I was drinking like a fifth of Jack Daniels a night with my friends. You know, it would be like we'd drink, I'd stand up, I'd fall to the ground, and that was it. And yeah, there's a lot of, like, you know, a lot of times I was thrown over shoulders. There's a lot of, like, throwing of the Barb over the shoulder, you know, like, I just know that I was, like, potato sacked around, and I would wake up on the sides of buildings and stuff like that, and I'd wake up in someone's bed going, my name's Barb, like, were you? Wow, you know, and I just, like, in my head, and I would wake up, and I would also wake up that, like, morning after morning with that, like, utter guilt, shame, and remorse and disgust for myself. And at this point, it was so bad that there's no way I couldn't not drink, because my life sober, like, through sober eyes, was horrifying to me. You know, I had to drink to take away that utter disgust for myself. Like, I couldn't handle it. You know, I couldn't live in my own skin. I didn't know how to handle life. My friends who were drinking as much as I did, like the stoner guys, were like, I think, you know, you got a little bit of a problem, Barb, you know, and like when like this guy had this Yabba Dabba Doobie t-shirt, you know, when he's telling you that, you know, like, you were called the high try. There's these two guys and me, the high try, and we're like, yeah, we're the high try, no one gets us. And when they're telling you that, like, it's a problem. So I ended up I think at 19, I went to my first rehab. Maybe I was 20. I don't know. It was a little hazy. And so I moved back home. And at this point, my brother was an alcoholic. He told everyone that he was an alcoholic. And he started going to AA and had been sober a number of years. And he had tried leaving me like little grapevines. And Barb, you remind me of me. Situations as I was like sitting there and you'd like find my 40 ouncers and like, marijuana pipes and stuff like that and be like, do you, I used to do the same things you did and I thought I had it all under control and I'm like, but you're an alcoholic and I'm not. So like, like go deal with someone who cares. But I just knew, I got to that point where it was like, I was hopeless. Honestly, like the first time I went to rehab, I was just kind of out of money, and out of friends. And so you go to rehab when that happens. And I was like, absolutely not even noticing that I had parents, that I had a family that was like, once again, shelling out a ton of money just to be like, when you're ready to make that change, if you want to do something different, like we will be there and help you. And I'm just like annoyed with them and totally entitled and like the biggest brat, I did a bunch of other drugs and I'm just touching upon them because it was just like this theme of like, I can't drink, so like what if I smoke pot and drink? Or what if I just smoke pot? Or like what if I do heroin because it keeps me on the couch and it keeps me out of guys' beds? Like I don't yell at my friends, so like heroin on the couch, like kind of a good solution to drinking every day. Like that's kind of the way it went. And then when I moved home, there were rules like, Barb, no heroin in the house. Seriously, we're laying down the law. Like my parents had to tell me, no heroin. Like that was like a rule. And I'm like, all right, like you're the lame ones that are making me come home and like sucks. And, I never thought I'd be that loser that had to move home. And, just like, such a brat. And like, my dad passed away a year ago and I'm just like, Father, like God, like why you didn't kick me out or like, punch me in the face. I don't get it. It's just like people like that, like my parents, like normies, like I don't understand how they live that way. I'm only like touching upon in here, like that kind of compassion, that kind of like that kind of love. I only learned that in here. Like I didn't know how to do that on the other side, like when I was out there, I didn't know how to, and I could never see the love that was given around me or, all like the great things that were going on in my life if I wanted. I couldn't see that, I couldn't see that because I'm just so involved and I'm so sick and I just can't see beyond it. So for the next 5 years, I was in and out of rehabs. I went to jail a bunch of times. Oh, Jesus. It was just like back and forth, like playing the, I'm just a drunk, I'm just a drug addict. I'm just a drug addict, like I'm just going to drink, I'm just going to do this, I'm just going to get a boyfriend. And then there were points where, they told me I was an alcoholic a long time ago. I'd had a addictionologist, a counselor, a group counselor, my parents, like all these therapists, like sitting in a circle, like what do we do with her? And then, I had a bartender and they told me I was an alcoholic once and I was, so angry that, I stayed away from the bar for a week. We were like, oh, God. And then we came back a week later and whatever. So it was really bad. And then, I don't know. It was getting horrible, but I always had a plan. I always just had some plan and some goal, like A was just never an option. Like there's just no way. Like I'm not ending up in this hot room on a Friday night with a bunch of losers that are going to go to Village Inn afterwards. You all know, like, no way. Losers do this, the loser that has absolutely no friends that's staring catatonic out a bedroom window, wondering how people just get up and go to work, but I'm thinking like AA is totally lame, and it just shows me, looking back now, and it's only through you guys, like looking back now, my perspective on all of this is so off. I don't see the whole picture. I don't see how sick I am. I don't see to the degree that like I'm self-involved. Like I don't see that on my own, I don't see that on my own. And and that's why I need to come here so much, because it continually shows me how much I need this and how sick I really am, and how, the stuff I do today, even though it's not drinking related, can be just as sick as me picking up a drink or will take me back to a drink, there's one point where my dad just looked at me, he's like, listen, you're going to die. And I just need to know that before I died, I did everything I could. My sweet, sweet father, you know, like the one that would just never give up on me, you know, and I'm just like, fine. And I go to this rehab, and they had already left like a couple months prior with this big to-do, running around the kitchen table, being like, you know, I'm leaving. They're like, don't leave. I'm like, forget it. You guys don't understand me, whatever. Like a bunch of dramatics just so I can go out. And I go back there and they're like, what's different this time? And I'm just like, I don't know. And I just start like losing it. I'm like, I don't know why I drink. I don't know why I do drugs. I don't know why I feel this way. I don't, you know, I'm uncomfortable. I'm angry. I'm hurt. You know, I don't know what happened to me. And he was just like, all right, that's it. Like, you know, and looking back now, I realized that was like the first time, like I had like a little bit of open-mindedness and a little bit of like willingness, you know, and I realized that was like my hopelessness. Like I was just out of answers, and I was saying, I don't get why I am the way I am. And it gave me like there's like a little crack in my brain that was like, maybe you'll listen for a minute, you know, and that's how it stayed. And they really pushed the 12 steps, and they were like, you have to go to meetings. Like, we'll help you out for a little bit, get you clean, but then you got to go to meetings if you want long-term sobriety. So, and that's what I did, you know, and once again, I went to AA after I got out of there because I had no friends. So that's what I did. And, 2 minutes. Okay, so wrapping it up. So in the next 5 years, I just jumped into AA, and I did everything you said. I got a sponsor. I did work the steps. I got a home group. I had sponsees. You know, I was doing the deal. And then around like year 5, you know, my boyfriend's sober. I got this great job. I'm hanging out. My roommate was sober. And, you know, and people are asking me for commitments. And I'm like, you know what? I did that. I worked really hard like 3 years ago. Like, I'm good. You know, like, give it to someone new. You know, and sponsees want to meet up with me. And I'm like, yeah, but I got this job, and it's really important. You know, and I'm not making commitments to home groups, you know, like I'm going, but like I'll just go when I feel like it, you know, and I don't know what happens, but at around just after year 7 in AA, I picked up again, you know, and it utterly floored me, you know, and literally for the next 3 years, it's been on again, off again. I had a year, and then I went out, and then I had 2 months, and then I went out, and then my dad got sick, and the only reason I got sober again was because I didn't want him to die with me wasted. My family was like, what's your problem? You had all this time, and now you can't even get it together, and you're just crushing the family. And I just lost it. And I'm like, you know what? Like, and at that point, my dad died, I was sober, and before I went back out again, I just thought, like, that's that spiritual solution they're talking about? Like, I'm so far from God right now, and I have absolutely no solution to deal with this. Like, I don't know what to do. And I felt so far away from it, and I'm like, God, that's what they've been talking about the whole time, you know? Like, this is a deal. This is why you continue. You know, this is why you continue, because of stuff like this, and you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what actions you're taking that are either keeping you in the rooms or taking you out, so you just better do it all, and you better just keep doing it. And if you screw up, you better tell someone. And I had a friend that I knew from AA, and she said, you know, like, honey, I love you, and if you want to try and get sober, you just come on down to Tampa. And she sent me a plane ticket, and I got on the plane. I don't know why. Now I know it's God, you know, and I've just been here, and it's been one of the best and the worst experiences of my life, you know, which you guys know, but it's been amazing. You know, as I said, you don't have to go back out and come back in to learn lessons, but all I know is that this is where I thrive the most. And since I've been here, I've gone to a meeting every day. I had to get honest about stuff that I'd stopped getting honest about, that I thought kind of was no big deal, but that I don't know if it's a big deal. Like, I can't trust myself to make my own judgments on what I think is a big deal in AA. What lie I think is a small enough lie for me not to share, you know. That's all I've been doing, you know, and I've just been hanging out with women. And I go to a women's meeting on Friday nights normally, because I'm an alcoholic woman and I need to be with women, you know, and I hated these women because they were like all pretty, you know, and I was just like, you know, I was just angry, and I'm wearing sweatpants, and I'm 80 pounds, and I'm gaunt, and I'm like, ugh, you know, and I have this perpetual coolness, and like I think I'm a hard ass, and you know, and I'm just an emotional wreck is really what I am, and I've just had to lose it here, and that's all I've done. I've just broke down here. I've told you when I'm angry. I've told you how uncomfortable I am. I've told you how I have absolutely no hope, but I just kept coming here, you know, and I told her, you know, my sponsor, I don't know if I believe in God. I don't know if I have a God in my life, but I do the steps, you know, and then I started making amends, and now I've got to do a daily inventory of something I've never done, you know, and so now I have a sponsee. Don't understand why, but it doesn't matter. Everything I feel, everything I think doesn't matter. I just keep coming here, you know, and now suddenly I feel good, but I have to still keep coming here. And the only way I'm going to keep that gratitude, and what has been drilled into my head, is that gratitude is an action. It's not the way I feel. It's not when I feel happy. It's the fact that I keep coming here and showing up and keep commitments, you know. And then I'm here for a new girl that walks in, or for someone whose dad died, or for someone that just said, I went out and relapsed after a really long time too, or just for someone new that's walking through the doors, and like, that's why I'm here. And then suddenly I'm like happy to be in AA again. So, wow, I just got really worked up there. So, but it's strange. I didn't think it would happen, but suddenly something happened where I'm in love with AA again. I don't know how long it will last, but I'm just going to ride it till it ends, and it probably will, and then I'll yell at you guys while I'm coming to meetings. So thank you so much, and it's awesome being here. Thanks.
Thank you. Chris Carpenter will now read the traditions.
The hell, Joe? You couldn't open them for me? My name's Chris Carpenter. I'm an alcoholic. These are the traditions, short form. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends upon AA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself through our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3. The only requirement for AA membership is a desire to stop drinking. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry its message to the alcoholic who still suffers. 6. An AA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the AA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, and prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Alcoholics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. AA, as such, ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible for those they serve. 10. Alcoholics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the AA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
And Wesley will now do the chips.
Everybody, my name's Wes Rogers. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Here at the Fourth Dimension Group, we give out chips, celebrate times in recovery. Anybody want to start this way in life? Pick up a chip. All right. 30 days. 60 days. Well, make this easy for me. 90 days. 6 months. Here we go. Sasha, for 6 months. 9 months? Matt? And 1 year? Or multiples? Hold on, Bob. We gotta take 9 months.
21, 4. Trying to remember.
1 year? And what's your name? Tom? Congratulations, Tom. 1 year, Tom. 4 years, Doug. 5 years, Peter. 13 years, Diane. Bob, 22? 21. Congratulations, everybody.
All right, now the second speaker, Bill.
Hi everybody, I'm Bill, I'm alcoholic. Hear me all right? Barb, thank you so much. It's just good to see Barb. It's been my pleasure to kind of watch her get happy against her own better judgment last year. But I don't know, my name's Bill, I'm alcoholic. I'd like to thank whoever asked me to talk. I kind of forget who asked me. I've been doing this for a long time. And you know, I take it for granted. I was the type of kid, if I had to read something in front of like 3 people, I just flunked the class. You know, I could never speak in front of people. Now, drunk, I would speak a lot in front of people. Pretty much I'd beg you to beat the shit out of me in most cases. But I started drinking at 14, and I had to turn myself into Alcoholics Anonymous at 18, which was really a bad deal, I thought. I felt like I was being robbed of the best years of my existence. You know, I knew that once I turned 21, that everything would be fine. But by the time I was 18, the state of Ohio had plans for my life in the Ohio State Penitentiary. You know, I remember being in the first treatment center, and I'm like, my life's not unmanageable. And this counselor said, well, when did you decide you wanted to go to the Ohio State Penitentiary? I got irritated and refused to talk, as it says in the big book. But, you know, I'm from a little town called Loveland, Ohio, outside of Cincinnati. Anyone? I can see there's a few people here old enough. Andy Griffith just died. Anyone who remembers the Andy Griffith show? That's what it was like where I grew up. It was a really nice place to grow up. I hated it. You know, I was like, why don't we live in the city? Why don't we live on the beach? You know, I would watch TV, and anything I'd see or anything I had, I just wanted what you had. You know what I mean? I've always had that kind of brain. It's getting a little bit better after a couple decades of AA. But I always say now, I think I had to get sober so young because my mind was so messed up. But I started drinking at 14, like I said, and I was cracking up on Barb because I don't know why I thought drinking was the only thing I was good at. And I turned pro real fast because there was nothing to go. My parents split up when I was young. My mom was real neurotic. She had me really young, so there were no sports, there were no scholastics. There was nothing that needed to go away. You know what I mean? To interfere with my drinking. I just drank. When I was 14, I was hanging out with guys in trailer parks that were covered in tats. You know, they were like 35 and 40, just got out of the penitentiary, and they were my role models. You know, it went from like before I started drinking, I was like, I want to be a pilot or an astronaut. 6 months later, and I was never going to do drugs, never going to smoke. I'm smoking, I'm drinking, and I'm taking drugs, and I'm like, we'll go ask Tony. He's been in the joint. He'll know what to do. And the reason I always mention this, I think it's so funny because, you know, at AA, I come to AA at 18 and everybody's old and I can't hang out there. But when I'm 14, I think it's awesome hanging out with people that have been in Vietnam and, you know, been in prison. It's like, I'm not hanging around with you punks that are 15. These guys are like 35, you know, they live with their moms. They're on parole. They don't have driver's license. I remember I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, that we're driving around in these, what was the car? The Monte Carlos with the Krager mags, doing burnouts on the ice, you know, getting the unemployment check. And I just remember the one guy going, "I thought you lost your license," and he holds up a Miller and he's like, "You ain't got him, they can't take him," and starts drinking. I was like, I worship these guys. I was like, these guys are gods, But I didn't get to hang out with them long because of the way I drink. You don't want a kid like me in your trailer, I would puke all over your GTO or whatever. And every time this would happen and I wouldn't get to hang out with these people anymore, you would think I flunked out of Harvard. That's how I felt. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I puked all over, the guys, fully restored GTO. You know what I mean? How embarrassing. You know what I mean? And I couldn't go back. And I always drank like a pig. I was always obsessed with alcohol. I was always the type, I would get somewhere and the first thing I do is I count people and I count booze. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm the guy that shows up, I haven't pitched any money, and I'm like, we need more beer. You know what I mean? People are like, who is this guy? You know what I mean? And it's funny to me now because when people started saying I had a drinking problem, I was an alcoholic, I would become so offended and so angry and like, well, why? What did I ever do to you? Like, why are you saying I drink too much? And, I had the same thing. I had people that were pretty much burnouts being like, you drink too fast. Like, you need to slow down. You need to mellow out. So I was hearing that at 15, And it didn't get any better. I hitchhiked. I like to talk about, nobody talks about hitchhiking. I used to hitchhike everywhere. Serial killers kind of ruined that mode of transportation. But, I used to hitchhike and my mother would be horrified. She'd be like, please don't hitchhike. People get killed. And it never stopped me. Because I was like, the sooner I get there, the sooner I'll be drinking. And I would usually walk most of the way because I looked like a serial killer at the time. I remember this one time this girl was, why don't you dress nicer? You know what I mean? Because I had real long hair and an army coat, bandana. And she's like, if you dress nicer, maybe more people would pick you up. And I was like, screw you. I'm not going to compromise for anybody because I was cool. But it's cold up there, and it'd be snowing and below zero, and people throw beer bottles at you and fireworks. And so I was sure my problem was not that I was an alcoholic. My problem was I needed a car. You know what I mean? I needed my driver's license. That was my problem. So I got a driver's license, and some of you already know what's going to happen. And alcoholics, I believe, sober and drunk, are very event-oriented. I thought that as soon as I got my driver's license, I would become a normal person. I would get a job. I would get a girlfriend. All these things would happen. I guess I thought all that was going to be in the trunk of the car. I got the car, and what happened is I got a DWI, almost instantly. And also I had my friends that didn't have cars would not ride with me, which hurt my feelings because of the way I drank, And I would wreck my car like every freaking night, and was ungrateful for it. It was a 65 Mustang, and it was more Bondo than metal. But I wanted a Mach 1, which if I would have got that, I wouldn't be alive today. But anyway, my dad got me this car, and I would wreck it, and I wouldn't even know. It'd be in the morning, the old man would be like, what happened to the car? I'm like, what do you mean? He'd take me out, show me the mystery dents, and I'd make up some story, and then he'd, prove it a lie. And he was the original Mythbuster, I guess. But, there'd always be something like telephone poles on the other side of the road. There's no way that happened. I'd get so mad, and I don't know. I wouldn't even know, But the first DUI I got, I was on a road sort of like, Almerton Road. And I was pulling out of an Arby's. I cut off a state trooper. So he pulled me over. And, for the next 20 years, I knew that the reason I got that DWI was because I took the wrong road home. And because I stopped at Arby's. That's the kind of brain I have. I'm like, if only you wouldn't have stopped to get that beef and cheddar, you'd be in a car with heat right now. But you're an idiot. You went to Arby's, and now you don't have a license, so you're walking again. And, I don't know how you're going to help somebody whose brain works like that. And that's how my brain works. So, you would see me talking to myself, which I still do, but now there's Bluetooth, so people think I'm on the phone. But anyway, I would be hitchhiking, talking to myself, thinking, if only you wouldn't have got that sandwich, you'd be in a car right now driving. Your life would be totally different. But, anyway, lost my license for like 6 months in the snow, decided that I was a victim of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers, and, I was going to have a designated driver when I got my license back. So you guys know what happened. I got my license back, got a DUI that night. I probably had him a couple weeks, but there was a big family meeting, where it's like my mother who lives with me who knows I'm insane. I'd scare my mother all the time. She'd find me, in my chair. Like, she'd come to wake me up for school, and I've been up on LSD all night. She'd be like, honey, wake up. I'd spin around my eyes, but I'm already awake. I got up early for school today, yesterday. stuff like that, or she'd find me, I'd just be in a coma for days, you know what I mean? And so she's telling my dad like how I shouldn't drive, and I'm drunk all the time, I'm on drugs, and I'm going to kill someone. She was really in touch with reality, but I thought she was completely dramatic, completely ridiculous, and for whatever reason, my dad was like, look, here's the deal. I don't care if you drink, but you can't drink and drive. And he goes, if you go somewhere and you drink, just call me. This is before cell phones and stuff. He's like, just call me, I'll come get you. I'm almost in tears. I'm like, I love you, Dad. You know what I mean? And it's like, I love you, and I got a DUI that night. That night I called him from the State Highway Patrol Station with a DUI. Split my car, and all night I'm just bragging to everybody how I cannot get a DUI. I'm like, Dave, my old man's totally cool. I just call him. I don't have to worry about this drunk driving crap, And it was just unbelievable. And I still don't think I have any kind of alcohol problem. I'm just completely convinced I am the biggest idiot that has ever lived. And that's how I felt when I came to AA. I'd be like, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just a moron. I'm just stupid. I mean, I had guys with me that weren't drunk that begged. You know what I mean? They're like, please, let us drive. And I was like, no way. You know what I mean? I insisted on driving, flipped the car, and then I'm like screaming at the guy that's with me like, it's your fault that I'm getting a DUI now, and that's just the way my brain works. But anyway, a buddy of mine was in a 28-day treatment center. This is 1984. And I just was making fun of him, you know what I mean? And then I got the DWI, and he calls up like, dude, what's the number of that place? And swear to God, the only reason I went in there is he was in there. And I was like, we're both losers. You know what I mean? I thought it was a big joke. I remember leaving high school, it was my senior year, and like, where are you going? I'm like, I gotta go to alcohol school, And I thought it was funny, and I remember this girl was like, good, because you really have a problem. And again, I'm totally mad, like, what? Like, so ridiculous. I don't have a problem, I'm just victim of bad police and poor judgment on my part kind of thing, but not alcohol. So I get in there, and they have AA meetings, which I can't even believe. I'm 18 years old, I'm going to my first AA meeting. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The guy talking, his name is Bill. He's been sober 30 years. I almost had a heart attack right there. You know what I mean? I'm like, 30 years you've been in the AA? To me, I just pictured a guy like in a dungeon, like chained up, you know what I mean? Like, another day in AA, And what's so funny, I know nothing about AA. Where do we get all these ideas? You know what I mean? Every alcoholic that's never been to AA knows what AA is about, I just pictured all these old dudes, like in trench coats, you know what I mean? Like, just don't drink, kind of thing. And anyway, this guy, it was just crazy. But he did talk about in the 50s, Vicks inhalers had Benzedrine in them. And I got real excited about that. My ears perked up. He said they'd break him open and eat the Benzedrine, and his heart would beat really hard. And I could see a Walgreens from my room, and I thought, man, I wonder if they still do that. So like, are there any questions? I'm like, yeah, they still put that Benzedrine and the Vicks. And that's all I got out of AA. I just thought, these people know stuff, They had to wash up, but I'm 18. I got a good 30 years left. I just, I need to learn what I can learn while I'm here. And that's really what I looked at AA as. I thought, these people know stuff, and I'm going to use this information when I get out. And I won't flush my life down the toilet like all these morons did. You know what I mean? I'm way more intelligent than that. And AA just annoyed me because they would do stuff like the first drink to get you drunk. That's really good. You know what I mean? That's good. And if you don't take the first drink, you can't get drunk. Stuff like that, I would be like, man, these people are unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like, I guess when your brain's completely shot, this works, But I just thought AA is a bunch of morons, you know what I mean? And I'm way too clever or whatever. So I get out. I last about 10 minutes out of treatment, and I'm smoking pot and playing those games. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I'm not an alcoholic, but I can't drink. That doesn't make any sense, you know what I mean? But it made sense to me. But I started drinking almost immediately because I am an alcoholic, and all the drugs in the world don't do what alcohol do. I mean, they're kind of like going to Busch Gardens. I mean, they're a little distraction, they're a little fun, but alcohol is what makes me tell no matter what problem I have, it's going to be fine. I'm going to surmount it. You know what I mean? I mean, you give me a few drinks, I'm good to go. I'll come up with some plan. And I can't tell you how many times I would be ready to kill myself because my parents wanted me to get a job or something. You know what I mean? Like, I would be confronted with reality, and my solution would always be to kill myself, and if you're going to kill yourself, you get a drink, and then I drink, and once I start drinking, I don't want to kill myself. Once I start drinking, I'm like, I'm moving to California. I'm joining the Marines. I'm going to electronics school, you know what I mean? And when I'm drunk, I can see this all happen. I don't know about you guys, but I used to see that ITT tag, and I'd be drunk, I'd tell people, yeah, that's what I'm going to do, computers, that's the future, you know, whatever, and I'd call them drunk and be so happy about it, then I'd pass out, back to reality, wet my pants, you know, wake up, I'm not going to electronics school, I got to drink, you know what I mean, I got to get some pop bottles together or something, get a couple quarts, and, you know, I didn't do that once or twice, I did it hundreds of times, you know. I've been around the world on the edge of my bed, you know, different ports of call and stuff, people saluting me and shit, you know, that's what alcohol does for me, but, you know, so anyway, I last about 3 months, and you know, I decide that I've lost my license for 2 years, so how can I possibly get in any trouble? And you know, as soon as I get my license back, I'll go back to AA. You know, because it's the drinking and driving. That's my problem. I mean, I don't rob people. A month later, I had a robbery charge. I had robbed a guy I'd met in that rehab, and you know, it just seemed like a bad movie. You know, and we went to court, and I was sure they're going to throw it out. And they're like, "Do you want?" They're like laughing because it's so retarded, the whole thing that happened. And they're like, you know, because I robbed a guy who was a guest at my house before I robbed him. And the judge is like, "Do you understand, young man?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, 5 to 15 years in the Ohio State Reformatory. I'm like, "Well, time out. I have a disease. I'm an alcoholic. It's an illness, you know." And they're laughing more than you guys are. And I'm not laughing, you know what I mean? And then I'm going to some of my more streetwise buddies like, "Dude, you're going to prison." They're like, "You're an idiot." They're like, "That's violent crime," and you know. And all of a sudden, I was interested in getting help in AA, and you know how it is. AA looked really good now. So I went back, I went into the treatment center, even though my new attorney told me it was a waste of my dad's money. I went in, got a sponsor. I'm reading the big book, you know, like voodoo, and praying. I'm even thinking maybe I'm praying a little too much. Thinking God might know that I'm kind of, you know, faking it a little bit. But anyway, I'm praying all day, you know, and I'm like, I'll go to AA, I'll do anything, just don't send my dumb butt to prison. And I get out, you know, and I got like 3 months till my court, which is just crazy. I'm like, how am I going to make it? Because I'm all right in the treatment center, but then I get out, and I'm just like a cat in a cage. You know, I'm pacing around my parents' basement. I would just smoke 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a night. No cable, no internet, no cell phone, no texting. You just think about how much your life sucks. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, these kids, they got video games to play and stuff. I just paced around and be like, I'm going to prison in a few months. I'm going to have 6 months when I go to prison. Awesome. You know, and my sponsor, I get the sponsor, and I'm reading the big book, and I read this part about, you know, I guess it's about Ebby, but anyway, you know, the people from AA went to the court, and they convinced him to go to AA, and I'm thinking, yeah, this is what I need. And I didn't come quite out and ask him, but I'm like, hinting, and here's what my sponsor tells me. My sponsor's like, don't worry, Bill, they got a lot of AA in prison. When you get to prison, you'll be able to go to AA up there. My brother goes once a month. And I remember I wanted to kill my sponsor then, you know what I mean? I was like, if I'm going to go for something good. But that guy's still my sponsor today, believe it or not. I didn't talk to him much after he told me that, but right before I got ready to go to court, they offered me a plea bargain. And anybody who's been to that kind of legal stuff, you know how fun that is. You know, it's like, pick a door, you know what I mean? It's like, this sucks and this sucks. You know, so I'm not going to make a decision, so I call my sponsor, because I want to blame him, you know, for whatever the outcome. So I call my sponsor. Here's what my sponsor tells me. He's like, well, I would just pray about it and try to help another alcoholic. I was so, I literally felt like I was drowning. This dude threw me a cinder block, like, here you go! You know? And it was like, I remember hanging up like, I can't even believe this. And my game plan was to book to Colorado and build a log cabin or a teepee or something and just stay there for about 20 years. But I did have a little bit of, you know, was connected a little bit with reality and knew how lazy I was. And knew I was no, you know, master of disguise. I knew I'd probably get caught in my mom's backyard in a Scooby-Doo tent or something. You know what I mean? Hiding from the police, you know. I knew that I would just get in more trouble. So it's weird, but I was really, you know, debating on it. And he had told me to help another alcoholic. I didn't have the sense to do that. God had one call me. And my old roommate from the treatment center I had just gotten out of called me, and he was a mess. He had been on a binge, cocaine, drinking. I mean, he was just a mess. I mean, stuttering, crying, babbling. And I'm talking to him like a parrot. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, all right, can you go to aftercare tonight? Just don't drink any, you know what I mean? All this stuff. I'm repeating things that I've heard that I really don't have any experience with, but I'm repeating what I hear in AA, and I believe drunk or sober, we try to help each other as much as we can. And I don't know, man. I talked to him for maybe 10 minutes, and when I was done, I hung up the phone and I was calm. I wasn't that big of a mess, and I said a little prayer, and I was like, God, if I have to go to prison, just take care of me. It was like I knew I had to face the music, you know what I mean? I knew I was just going to make things worse if I booked. And I went to court the next day, and I remember there was like a blizzard, and I kept hoping our car would wreck on the way there. And I had my toothbrush in my back pocket, and all the older guys were making fun of me. They're like, look, the kid's got his toothbrush. He's ready to go to jail. They were all making fun of me. But I lucked out. I didn't go to prison. I ended up doing county time, and ended up doing less than like a month. And my attorney was just like, I don't know how you got out of going to prison. And I didn't find out till later that guy that I talked to on the phone blew his brains out that day. He was 18 years old. He put a 38 in his mouth, shot himself. But when I don't know if I had said it before, but when I felt calm, I know today that was a spiritual experience, but I remember thinking I would rather be sober going to jail than be him, in that craziness, not knowing what to do and not sober. And I'd like to say I got out and stayed sober ever since, but that isn't what happened. I got out and I was like, hallelujah, you know what I mean? I stayed sober. I didn't go to prison. I went to meetings for like a week. You get a lot of attention. And then a week later, you know how we are. I'm sitting in the meeting. I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm in AA. I'm 19 years old and I'm in AA. This is so lame. I shouldn't have to do this every night. And next thing you know, I'm drunk. And but it was different now. When I would drink, I think, you're crazy. You know what I mean? All those prayers, all the time, I was like, God, you get me out of going to prison. I'll go to AA, I'll do whatever. And here I am drinking. I felt like I was going to get struck with lightning. I'd be drinking a beer like, it's just crazy. But finally, I stayed close to AA, though. I would never drink long. I'd drink a couple days, and I knew the unpredictability of alcoholism. And people were going down like flies around me. People that I would be in AA, we'd be making fun of the meeting. I'd be like, where's Jimmy? He'd be like, yeah, he got shot last night. I'd be like, what? Like, yeah, he was robbing a liquor store. It was like all the people that I like to hang out with were either overdosing or dying or going to prison. And I started thinking, what are you going to do, Einstein? It was like I knew AA would work, but I didn't think it would work for me. And then finally I was like, well, I'm going to just try it. And my sponsor story is kind of like that. It was like, I'm going to prove that AA doesn't work so that, I can drink with a free conscience, I guess. I don't know. But I started doing all these dumb things he said to do, which was the steps, basically. And the big book. I wanted something newer. I was like, look, did you see this book was written in 1939? I think this is kind of old, It's 1984. Don't you have a newer book? And I also wanted sleep medication. He said I couldn't have that. And I wouldn't know. Nobody ever died from lack of sleep. That used to drive me crazy. I think you might. You know what I mean? But so what I did is 2 minutes. I had all these wonderful spiritual things I was going to tell you. But anyway, basically what I did is I started using a sponsor. I started calling this guy every night. You know what I mean? Where before I'd think about calling him, I'd go, he's going to talk me out of drinking. And I'd do brilliant things like flip a coin. Heads drink, tails go to AA. And it'd be, go to AA, and I'd be like, 2 out of 3. And I'd drink, But instead, I started calling this sponsor. And I did not like him, I'll tell you. I did, but I didn't. I respected him, I know that, but he would just laugh about everything. I'd call him and I'd be like, yeah, Joe, or no, before he'd even answer the phone, because I wasn't willing to call till like 3 a.m., and God bless me, he worked third shift. He'd be like, yeah, Bill, what do you want? This is before caller ID. I'd be like, how do you know it's me? Go, other people got jobs, they sleep at night. He'd laugh, and I'd be like, but I would talk to him and I could sleep. You know what I mean? I would just run on about my problems, and he would everything went back to, you've been reading the big book? You should read the big book. So I started reading the big book every day. And my brain was toast. I would read like the same line 58 times. I think I'm never going to get this. But I kept trying, and he was real big on, it didn't matter what I thought. And I was real concerned with what I thought. He goes, it matters what you do. So he would just get me doing all kinds of stuff that I couldn't believe he got me doing. Like, he's like, you want to go down to the jail? And Todd, like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I came to AA to stay out of jail. Why would I go volunteer to go to jail? You know, I thought they were trying to trick me on a warrant I didn't know I had or something. And he'd always be like, don't do it if you don't want to. He goes, do it because it'll keep you sober. And he'd be like, if you don't want to do it, I'll get somebody else. And I mean, he'd totally act like, you better say yes or I'm going to get this guy over here. And you're staying up here at the club by yourself, you know. And it's like, I'll go. And then I'd be like, damn it, I can't believe I did this. And then he got me going to the state prison, mental hospital. We'd go to Longview State Mental Hospital. If you ever seen one flew to Cuckoo's Nest, that's where we were every Monday night. And I'd be like, why are we here? These guys have just smoked all my cigarettes. You give a guy a cigarette, he'd smoke it in one hit. Because of Thorazine. And I think, man, this is crazy. He'd be like, that's alcoholism. And everything was alcoholism. And I just thought, I was like, you're like a fanatic. You think everything's alcoholism, you know? And I had all these things I was worried about. And alcoholism was the only thing that was about to kill me. And it turns out he was right. I've been around, you know, I've been sober May 25th, 1985 is my date. So I've been sober over 27 years. And what I've seen is people come in, they stay a while, and after they get a few years of sobriety for the most part, and their life gets really good, they're like, later. And then they come back, you know, unfortunately. If they're lucky, they come back, you know. And my sponsor, he made me go to a meeting every day the first 5 years I was sober. And I was so mad about that. But I'm so glad that I did it now because all the people, you know, that I was like jealous of aren't here today for the most part. I was just back home in Ohio just last week, and there were two people that I just loved to death that both went out after 20 years of sobriety. And, you know, the one's just coming back now and, you know, lost her nursing degree and everything, but they're back, so there's a chance. I mean, it's, you know, today's all we have. But I'm out of time, but real quick, I'll just say my greatest joy is being part of this young people's group that I didn't want to have anything to do with. You know, I mean, it's funny they invited me to go, I don't want to go to that shit. You know, I didn't go to young people's when I was young. I got sober with people that were older than me. You know, I was too cool to go to young people's, you know. But it's just been a joy because I've got to see so many people get well. And I've been sober since I'm 19, so I think it's important that I'm there to let them know, like, you never have to go back out again, you know. I've had a job since I've been sober. I've had my driver's license. Before AA, both of those would last average about a week. So I'm happy, you know, and that's all I got. Thanks a lot.